Okay guys, so today I have a Vanquish Soul deck profile and some gameplay for you. If you're new to the channel, I try to have kind of deck theory videos. I talk about ratios and go over gameplay lines and stuff like that, where I'm not covering meta content, but I'm covering things that can compete with the meta. So there's always a competitive angle on my videos, but I usually try to cover either White Forest or other decks that are less represented. I did do a poll on my channel just over 24 hours ago where I asked what types of content people want, and the overwhelming majority of people that voted want White Forest content. So don't worry, that's still probably going to be most of my content. And the next video is probably going to be an Eldritch version of White Forest, which is actually pretty decent with the new Eldritch support. But for now, I want to do something new. So let me give you a very brief overview of the game plan of Vanquish Soul. I'll talk a little bit about my ratios and then show you some gameplay. So this deck has a very unusual restriction where you need to have Earth, Fire, and Dark monsters to be able to resolve the effects of your cards. So all of the non-engine that you play kind of has to be those cards, or it has to be in a very limited amount. Almost everything you do or play in this deck is either non-engine or it's trying to get you one of those attributes or one of these monsters. Razin is the main starter, which is the searcher for the deck that you also get off of Rota and Durandal, which is a lot better if you're playing a heavy Kashtira engine, because you do have to equip this to a monster on field, and you don't want to use your normal summon because then you can't normal summon the Razin that you add. So for example, if you summon a Fenrir and then you Durandal and search the Razin, then that's fine. And the majority of hands that you're going to draw will have a Kashtira card because you're playing 3 Planet, 3 Fenrir, and a single Unicorn. This feels a lot better in this deck because Fenrir is an Earth and Rysart is a Fire. This card is extremely important in this deck because it is a searchable Fire. So not only does it give you easier access to a fire in your deck, but the best searcher in the deck, which is Jiaolong, requires 2 fires in hand. You reveal 2 fires to search any Vanquish Soul card from your deck to your hand. As one of the main win conditions, or quasi win conditions, is Snow Devil. So this card is less good going second because it really requires some setup for this to resolve. You need to reveal a Dark, Earth, and a Fire to resolve all of the effects. It's basically an out-of-turn Raigeki that prevents your Vanquish Soul monsters from being destroyed. And you can also special a Vanquish Soul monster from hand, which is useful because the Razin, which can destroy all other monsters in its column, is a lot easier to play around if you just make it and then pass turn, and then they just don't summon into that column. So both the Snow Devil and the Link one, which can either special from hand or add back from grave, are good ways to get your Razin live to blow up whatever's in the column. There is another card you can play instead of Snow Devil, which is Dust Devil, which is a lot more flexible on the dice roll because even if you go second, because it's kind of like a Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse type effect, it's still useful, whereas the the Snow Devil is usually a brick going second. But this card is so strong that I think it's debatable that maybe you do just keep it in even though you're game 1. This deck can also play around a lot of very strong floodgates, like There Can Be Only One and Skill Drain, because this deck also, the kind of the gimmick of the deck is bouncing your own monsters to summon other monsters. So you can normal summon Razin, search something, and then chain link 2 while Skill Drain is on the field. You can chain your Heavy Borger to bounce the Razin so it will resolve off field and then not be under Skill Drain, and etc. Okay, the extra deck is not super important in most versions of this deck, but if you're playing a heavy Kashtira package, you do actually go into the rank 7s somewhat often, so that is kind of important, and for that reason, I am not playing Pot of Extravagance, although that is a very strong card in most other versions of this deck, because you only really care about banishing the rock. Okay, last thing it'll say about the current format is that it does seem like mixing hand traps and breakers is now better, because the Ryziel end board is not destroyed, but is hurt by something like an Eclipse or a Talents or whatever. So yeah, I've opted to play Super Poly because I have space for it and Talents. Okay, now let me show you some of the gameplay. So I have a game against Tenpai, and then I have a match against Branded. So I believe this is game 1. He won the die roll and made me go first, which is why I assumed that it's Tenpai. So here I summon the Fenrir, and I search for another Razin. There are other routes for making Jiaolong live, but if you want to get Jiaolong live as soon as possible, you do need 2 fires to reveal in your hand. So there are often like many paths to getting like different outcomes, but usually rushing Jiaolong to get it live is the easiest way to consistently cycle through your resources every turn. So here I will now Fenrir search for the Rysart, now that he hasn't drolled me, although to be honest, if he drolled me after the Rota, I would be pretty screwed. I would probably just Yeah, I actually wouldn't really have many plays after that. So here I normal summon the Razin and I search for Mad Love. So normally what you do is the Razin searches the Mad Love so that you can turn the Razin into the Link 1, and this specials the Mad Love from hand, and that gets you your Snow Devil or whatever the spell or trap is you've chosen to play in the deck. So you also need to reveal an attribute to use an effect of a monster to be able to trigger the Jialong's effect to special from hand. So here I just use the reveal of fire so that it can't be destroyed by card effects this turn, and then that allows the Jialong to trigger and I can bring him out. Now I can reveal 2 fires, the Razin and the Searched Rise Heart, and then I can add any Vanquish Soul card from my deck to my hand. In this case, I'm opting to search for the Heavy Borger. So the very basic line that you're looking to play basically every single turn is you want Fenrir, and I say that because there are 3 Fenrir and 3 Planet. Or I guess you could draw Unicorn and search for Birth, but it's way less good in terms of the attributes than drawing a Fenrir, because then you can search the Rise Heart if you need a Fire, or you can search another Fenrir if you need another Earth in hand. And then you go into this play, and then the Rock will special the Mad Love, which will search, in this case, the Snow Devil, the out-of-turn Raigeki. And then we can bounce the Mad Love to special summon the Heavy Burger, and this reveals a Dark, which is the Mad Love we just returned, to draw a card. Or, and this does happen somewhat often, you can reveal Earth and Fire to burn for 1500. So it's like pretty strong in time, and it's very good in the grind. So here, because he is playing Tenpai, I decide that maybe I should have some insulation against random stuff he could be playing, like Raigeki, for example. And so I decide to Rise Heart, just banish whatever, a Fenrir, not the Unicorn, and make the Shangri-Ira, because at least this has some protection from destruction. And then I can choose if I want to summon a Fenrir or a Unicorn on his turn. So at this point, the basic setup here right now is that the Snow Devil doesn't have an Earth monster. It has a Fire and a Dark monster. But on his turn, I can Rock of the Vanquisher in the main phase, and I can add the Razin back to hand, so I have 2 fires, and then the Jialong can reveal 2 fires to search an Earth. And then that will give me all 3 attributes for the out-of-turn Raigeki to be live. So obviously you don't use this until like you actually really want to use it, because this destroys everything that's not a Vanquish Soul card. So usually you want to get value out of the Kashtira stuff first, and that's also why the planet is so important, because if you have the Birth up, it doesn't really matter if you destroy your own Kashtira cards after you've gotten value out of them, because you just bring them back and they're part of your normal resource cycling. Okay, so here I bring out the Unicorn. I'm thinking that, you know, if for some reason it isn't Tenpai, I want to look into the extra deck. And if it is Tenpai, there are lots of versions of Tenpai right now where they only play like a couple Tenpai cards, and it's mostly like Fiendsmith and Kashtira cards. So the Unicorn will hurt that deck a lot more than, you know, a Fenrir that might be easier to play around. But anyhow, he starts the turn by using Imperm. And when he Imperms, he obviously can't chain another Imperm. And so I could rock to add the Razin to my hand to make it so that the Jialong is live, and then on res I can Jialong search something else so that the Snow Devil is live immediately. But I'm thinking that I don't want to play into Talents or Thrust or something like that, so he does have time to summon a Fenrir, and he searches another Fenrir, which lets me know that, you know, it's not a heavy cash engine probably. Here's the Doradora, and so now it is confirmed that it is Tenpai. He searches for the Genroku, which can then trigger, and now he brings out the Padra or Pydra and sets the Sanguine Summoning. So at this point, he doesn't have the Sanguine Summoning protection, and so technically, you know, I can Snow Devil here. Like, I could do the Rock, add back the Razin, so Jialong has 2 fires to reveal, search for probably the Caesar, which is an Earth, and then I would be able to blow up the field if I wanted, so that's one option. So here I Rock, and now he can Fenrir, and I wasn't sure what he was going to Fenrir. And so, but whatever he, like, if he targeted the Rock, I would already have used the Rock, and if he targets the Jialong, I can chain the Jialong. And then, you know, the Heavy Burger has already gotten its draw, so it's not super important that this stays on field per se. So he didn't really have a good banish, but he chooses to banish the Shangri-Ira because he might have a hard time getting rid of it otherwise. So that means that his Fenrir is basically no longer live. And the only card on my field right now that I don't want to destroy is the Unicorn, because the Rock of the Vanquisher isn't a VS card, so it will be destroyed by Snow Devil, because this only protects your Vanquish Soul cards, and this is not a Vanquish Soul card, and my Unicorn. So I only want to use it when I have to. Here I also can summon my Caesar if I want, and I can Caesar and pop the field spell that he's set, so he doesn't get the search and then gets access to Chandra, and he doesn't have any tuners on field right now. So this allows me to try to cycle through as many of my resources as possible and preserve my Unicorn and my Rock for as long as possible without Snow Deviling them. So here I'm not actually sure what he's trying to do, because he Kaimens for the Fadra instead of the Chandra. The main thing you have to remember here is that Tenpai players are usually horrendous. So I can only assume this is a mistake, because if he had drawn the Chandra, which is at 1, and therefore not searched it off of Kaimen or summoned a fire monster from his hand, he would just have summoned the Chandra before. So I don't really understand what the strategy is here, because he doesn't have a tuner to bring back. So he basically just attacks until he scoops. And so that's obviously like not a super good game, but it does show you the resource loop. Now I will show you against Branded, which are better games than that, because, you know, not just a Tenpai helmet player. So here he Normans the Aluber, and the other thing to remember here is that Branded players are like Tenpai players, where most of them are very, very bad. And so if you Ash the Branded Fusion, they usually will stumble and not really have too much else that's good to do here. So here he dumps the Garura off of Nadir and Maximus, and then I dump the Dempsey and the Shangri-Ira, because it's least likely that I'll use these cards in most games. Here we have the High Spirits. He adds the Mercurier, and in the end phase, he gets access to the Quem, dumps the Fallen of Albaz, and he has access to Branded in red. So he does have, you know, like a Mare Jade or whatever he wants on... No, does he? Well, he could go like Guardian Chimera, I guess, is one of the main things that I'm thinking about. Now here, I make a pretty major mistake, because there's this like effect when you're near to Branded or Tenpai players where you also just start to become very helmet and you don't think through your own plays. So here I summon Fenrir and I add Unicorn, because I'm thinking, well, this guy is a Branded player, so he's just going to shotgun the Branded in red and summon Guardian Chimera and pop my guy and draw 2 cards, and then I'm just going to summon the Unicorn and like search for Birth and bring back the Fenrir, right? But that's like obviously that doesn't make that is really, really bad. What I should have done, because I drawn Stake Your Soul, is I should have searched the Rise Heart. So the play would have been that I had a Fire live for the Stake Your Soul to special a Razin from deck, which I already had like targeting protection from, because I could, if he did anything to my Razin, I could bounce it off the Burger so that the Razin resolved. And really I just needed that Fire for Stake Your Soul to resolve off of. So that's a major, major misplay. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can force him to make talents live. So I Stake Your Soul here, and I bring out the Mad Love, which doesn't actually have a good target, because A, I'm playing into a board with Snow Devil, and B, Dust Devil wouldn't even do that much against his deck. I mean, maybe it's good to book the Quem or something, but... so here I Burger, and really I'm just waiting for the talents to become live. And I try to draw a card, so I draw another Fenrir here. He brings out the Luluwalalith, so I target that to banish off of my Fenrir, and he brings out a Cartesia. So here I talents and draw 2, which turns off my Prosperity. So this is kind of like a bricked hand here. And I go battle phase, and then he gets access to the Mirror Jade. So then I scoop it up. Game 2, I draw, I would say like a relatively typical hand here. So I plan it for the Unicorn, which... maybe I should have Prosperity first and seen if I could have dug for any other Kashtira card, because then that always makes searching the Unicorn feel a lot better, because you can potentially get like a Unicorn and a Fenrir on field and also a Rise Heart. But I just searched for the Birth, because the thought process I had here was that maybe the game will like be kind of grindy, and so I want to hold Birth in my hand. Anyhow, so here I get the Durandal here, I equip it to my Unicorn and search for the Razin. So now I have like, you know, the basic line here where I can search Mad Love, I can go into Rock, special the Mad Love, get the Snow Devil, and now the Burger can actually not get a draw because I've used Prosperity, but still I'll be able to draw on his turn at least. So here I have a Dark and an Earth in hand, the Rock can put back a Fire in hand in his turn, and so I can be pretty sure that the Snow Devil will be able to resolve at some point. So now my opponent goes in standby. I draw off the Burger, because since it's Branded, he's going to be on Power Spell and probably have like Thrust talents. So I draw here into another Burger. Here he thrusts, and I don't chain Rock, because if I chain Rock, he can decide to thrust for a talents, and then add the talents to hand, for example. But he's going for the evenly matched, so it doesn't really matter. So on res, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not playing around talents, I'm playing around evenly matched. So I add the final missing attribute to my hand. So now I have fire, earth, and dark. And I'm thinking that my win condition is probably the Snow Devil resolving here. So here he evenlies, and I leave everything, I banish everything besides the Snow Devil. So here comes the fusion deployment. I don't have any non-engine in hand. The Cartesia comes out. Here he banishes Mercurier. He gets access to the Quem. Quem comes out, and now he activates Lost. And then he uses Cartesia's effect as Chainlink 2. And this is kind of like my window for using Snow Devil, and I'm thinking if I pop these 2 cards, you know, he can't fuse. So I reveal all 3 attributes, I summon the Razin searches me the Caesar, and now all he has is a Saronair. So I can Caesar in the end phase and pop his branded Lost, and then I can Druis Worm if I want, for example, to get rid of the Cartesia. So at this point, like, I have so much stuff in rotation that there's basically no way for him to win. So I just summon Razin and start going through the basic play. And I have access to Jiaolong, and then he scoops when I go battle phase. So now game 3, I draw also what I would say is like a very standard hand, maybe minus the Birth Brick. So there's a non-engine I've sided in, there's Shifter, there's a Bestial because I sided in Bestials, and here's a Race Off. So I guess I am missing like a Vanquish Soul starter, but when you draw a hand like this where you have like Shifter and Kashtira cards, that's often enough to just continue playing for even like multiple turns before you actually have to have your engine. So here he branded fusions because, you know, he has to make some type of play. So he goes for the Lubellion and brings out the Mirror Jade. The thing about Mirror Jade is this says that you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material, and this is the cost. So because it's cost, you can't pay the cost under Shifter. If it was part of the effect, then it would just be banished instead, unless there was some conjunction in there that required it to go to the grave. So he actually cannot Mirror Jade. I forget this when I start playing, but it is important to mention that his Mirror Jade is actually not live. So here he keeps the Mirror Jade, which is, you know, I mean, whatever, we're under Shifter anyhow. So it's not really going to do anything. I guess he's keeping it because if it leaves the field, it doesn't matter if it goes to banished, he can still destroy everything in the end phase. So here I search for the Race Off and summon the Fenrir. Because I don't have a battle phase, because I used evenly matched, I can't just attack, banish the Jade face down. And I don't have a way to force him to use an effect to where I can Fenrir or Talents. So here I summon the Rise Art, and because I have drawn the Birth, I'm trying to bait if he has anything at all, like any type of hand trap, anything. So I banish the Unicorn because I've drawn the Birth already, so I can get access to the Unicorn, and I Big Eye, and when I take the Jade is when I remember that he actually can't use the Jade anyhow, but the Big Eye takes permanently, so he's not going to get the Jade back. So now I activate the Birth, and I bring back the Fenrir, because I'm thinking actually the Fenrir is probably better than the Unicorn right now. Yeah, I don't have a battle phase, so I pass turn. Here he goes Quem. I banish the Quem because I'm thinking that he has almost nothing left, so I should be able to survive with a Druis Worm. But here he goes for the Albaz, and he makes a Dragstapelia. I think that he turns off the... So here he goes for the Branded in red, and I turn that off by banishing the Albaz with my Druis Worm. So that's exactly what I thought, is either he has nothing, and I beat him with a single Fenrir, or whatever his play is, I win with a Druis Worm. So yeah, and then Birth banishes what's in his grave. He Dragos to negate the Big Eye, because otherwise I could attempt to take it on his turn, and he'd have to use the Drago on the Big Eye, but it doesn't matter. Because I still have the Birth up, so the Birth can bring back whatever. He chooses to stop the Fenrir, thinking that, you know, he might be able to survive if I, you know, like, crash with the Druis Worm, or something, and then not be able to kill him, but I can just Talents and take, and so then he scoops it up. So my final thoughts here is that this deck is in a kind of an interesting spot where the restriction is very unfortunate, because it means that you can't play certain types of hand traps, or you're heavily disincentivized from doing so. You could play stuff that makes you draw more, like the Charmies, because even though the attribute doesn't help you, they should draw into attributes that do help you. But I do think that this deck is in a slightly more interesting position now, where you can mix hand traps with power spells. And this deck, you know, using something like a Shifter against Ryzeal, or like a Super Poly or a Talents or whatever, these cards are quite strong into a lot of the boards that exist right now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I will probably do a White Forest video next, so thanks for watching.